Welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. As I'm getting started here, talking to Tom and Susie Finley with Ascent Living Communities. We run into each other all the time at conferences. It is so embarrassing that I've never invited them on one of my live streams. So we are remedying that today. They are doing some incredible stuff. We're going to get into all of that in just a minute. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Tom, Susie, welcome. Let's actually start with who you guys are, where you're at, Ascent Living. Tell us about you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Steve. Tom Finley, CEO of Ascent Living Communities. We are a Colorado-based senior living operator. Right now, 6 communities, all in Colorado, about 750 units, independent living, assisted living, and memory care, about 550 associates.
And Susie Finley, founder and president of Ascent Living Communities. I am 27 years in my senior living career. I've been doing it since college, majored in gerontology, so one of those unique individuals, and we're excited to share topics about our company today.
Terrific. So how did you decide to start I'm going to wrap 2 questions together. How did you decide to start Ascent Living, and kind of what's your secret sauce? I mean, what makes you better than the guys down the street?
Sure. I mean, it really started the company going back a ways, 2008 when it started. And, I think we saw, like a lot of founders, we really were passionate about the business. Personally, we have grandparents that were really important in our lives. And so to get involved in senior living at a young age, I think that's fairly common. It's either parents or grandparents. For both of us, it was grandparents. And really, saw that, there are big providers out there that do what they do, and they do it, the way they do it. We really felt like, this sort of local hands-on business would be just a different way to approach it. And we've stayed pretty geographically disciplined over the course of the life cycle of the company. We're still only operating in Colorado. And we think that's important. We get phone calls, we get emails, whether it's our friends or our friends of our friends who have needs with, used to be grandparents, now it's their parents, that need a senior living placement. We're sort of a resource here in Colorado for that. So, and it really is, it's a feel good business. We love it. Lots of people involved, lots going on every single day, and we're pretty hands on.
And I was just going to add to that. So I joined Tom in 2013, and I spent my first 15 years working for larger companies, some publicly traded companies. And secret sauce wise, and part of why I wanted to join and grow this company with Tom, is that this local hands-on ownership piece that Tom had mentioned. For us, and especially with my years in Colorado, we now have 2nd generation residents that we're taking care of. Their adult children, I placed their parents 15 years ago, and now those adult children are my residents. We have associates who have been with us for 15 plus years. So it's really, that's what I feel like makes us special as far as how we stand out from the competitors.
So I cannot tell you how much I love this. Got a guy that I've known for many years. My wife worked for him. This was in Southern California, and I'd seen him for years. I ran into him in a conference, and he has like 3 communities in Southern California. And I asked him about his growth plans, and he sort of looked at me funny, and he said, "Why would I grow?" He says, "Right now, we've got 3 buildings. That means we can be in our buildings every day." They were all very narrowly clumped in Southern California and the LA basin. He says, I don't have to, I know I know the families, I know the residents, I know the team members. We have great relationships. I don't have a lot of overhead because I don't have to have all this corporate infrastructure. And he says, I don't know what I'd do with that extra money if I made it anyway. And this way I get to do amazing things for some people. And I love that. I think it's just the right way to do it. So let's talk a little bit. We were all together at Senior Living 100 a few weeks ago, and you spent some time talking about your journey and technology. And I also want to get to maybe actually before we go to the technology, let's actually start and talk about your mild cognitive impairment program. I think that is such a cool thing.
Sure. So we started a program. We actually had a vision for this several years ago in 2019, and then 2020 derailed us a little bit, and we picked back up a few years ago and really wanted to create a program for residents. So if you think about an assisted living and you think about a large assisted living and a resident that might have mild cognitive impairment, and that resident moves in and they have trouble navigating long corridors or getting to the dining room, or who do I sit with, or how do I get to activities because of that mild cognitive impairment, we wanted to create a program that could help residents live longer in assisted living, not have to move to a secured environment in memory care because, one, they're not ready for it. Two, they would decline more rapidly if they moved there too quickly. And so we wanted a program where we could have a coordinator overseeing the program, doing the activities with these residents, integrating them into the large community activities, but they would have their own home base that they go to every day. It's a 7-day-a-week program, and it's from breakfast until dinner time, and they have their own group activities. They have a full calendar for the day. They integrate into the main community activities, but it really helps them to find their way and not feel lost if they're feeling that way, and be able to stay in assisted living longer. We're also seeing, which we did not expect this, in independent living, many of our couples where one is the caregiver of another one, we have seen amazing results where they can get a break and they really have a day respite program, and their loved one can come to the program during the day. And we do have some cool outcome stories I'll let Tom share that we've seen with the program.
Good. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it's been in place for about a year and a half now. And, we've seen some really, like Susie said, some interesting outcomes. I mean, this is mild cognitive impairment. We've also had people who have suffered a stroke. And after the stroke, they enter the program. And one resident in particular, she's been in the program about the entire time we've had it, since we've launched it. I mean, when she entered the program, she could only speak just a very few phrases. And it's the mother of a friend of mine, actually. Now she's been in the program working on this every single day. She's now able to have brief conversations. Her friends come and visit her, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she is doing amazing," And this is, and they're really, the family is really crediting it to all the hard work that she's putting in every single day, and that's what this program is all about. It's every single day we're working on something with these residents, and that's what it takes really to maintain and sort of hold your brain health, after an event like a stroke or after an early diagnosis of dementia. And so that's the key in the plan here, is to sort of hold off the progression of the disease as long as we can. And that's really by keeping your mind and your body very active, or as active as you can be, which are really some of the key pillars of the program.
Oh man, I needed that. I needed this so badly 8 months ago with my stepfather. I've written about it, talked about it a lot. He came out of the hospital, had some confusion because of COVID, so they forced him into memory care. I fought it, didn't have any choice. And it was so hard because he was so much, very quite impaired cognitively, but he was so much less impaired than everybody else in the memory care program that it was a completely inappropriate placement. And then after 3 weeks, we were able to move him to assisted living when they finally realized that he wasn't, in fact, a wander risk. But once he got to assisted living, most of the people were too high functioning, and he just sat in his room, and this would have, oh man, it would have changed his life. This is so cool.
Nice. There really is. I mean, it's a progression. Really the disease. From diagnosis. An Alzheimer's diagnosis could be a 10-year disease. Someone really early in that process is not anywhere close to someone, sort of at the end. So being able to sort of meet those residents where they are in their progression and have them in the right living environment, have them with loved ones. And like Susie mentioned, some of our participants in Bridge to Belonging are independent living residents. They live with their spouse still. And so it really has been quite an amazing thing to see unfold.
Well, and the other thing I really like is that you make it available to the public. I think one of the greatest opportunities we miss in the industry is we sort of build this thing and we almost it's not a physical moat, but we create this kind of moat out there, and we don't really have much interaction with the outside world. And the more we can do that to make this available, to become a part of the community, is huge. So I love that. So I want to shift to technology. I would love to have you just talk to me a little bit about how you look at technology. You've obviously been in the business long enough to remember when we didn't have pervasive Wi-Fi and everything was done on paper, right? And I think that's mostly gone. And so talk to me a little bit about your technology journey.
Sure. I'll kick it off, and I'll tell the same story that I told at Senior Living 100 a couple of weeks ago, which is I spent 10 years of my career working for a large publicly traded company, and I was an executive director for 15 of those years. Every Friday afternoon, when my residents and their family members were having happy hour and lots of visitors in the community and lots of things happening, I sat in my office for several hours putting together the flash report. And it was this Excel document, and it had information on every aspect of the operation. And I would run around to all of my leadership team's offices and ask them for information from last business week. And they would pull it up from their systems that they had to log into each of their systems. Maybe it was accurate, maybe it wasn't. It was definitely not fresh live data. And they would give it to me. I would submit this report to my RVP, who would send it to who she sent it to, and I never heard from it again. And so I spent these years doing this. I missed out on this time with my residents and their families. It wasn't fresh data. I don't know what they were doing with it. And so Tom and I, several years ago, said, with our communities, we have a home office team of 18. We have a very robust home office team. And we said, we want our executive directors to be able to be out there on the floor, not be in their offices, not be on computers, not be doing reports all day. And so how could we come up with a way to give them this same information, but on Monday mornings, instead of them submitting it to us on Friday, we would give it to them on Monday, and they could actually formulate their day and their week and know what their targets and their goals were off of that information. And so really the vision several years ago was that we would create a spreadsheet that we would send out to them. And never in a million years did we ever think that it would end up where it has gotten to today, just 3 years later. And so I'll let Tom jump in on some of that.
Yeah, so it started, again, us giving the data to our team. And when we started doing this, we realized, wow, it's really kind of hard to pull this data from some of these systems. I mean, we're talking about, a lot of times it was a data dump that may have come into Excel or something like that. But sometimes the only way you could get the data, it would come to you in a PDF report. And that's not very useful at all. So then you're taking the PDF, you're typing it into a spreadsheet. There's all kinds of errors that can happen whenever that occurs. And so that really prompted us to start looking at the actual systems that we have in place. And so with senior living, as we all know, we have a lot of systems we work with. Well, we started going down this journey and realizing that, a lot of these systems, either some of them were very user-friendly or very data-friendly, and some were not. Sort of fast forward, what we ended up doing is, over the course of several years, we ended up analyzing all the systems, and we switched out 12 different systems within our tech stack. And some of the most key and critical components we need is to be able to get that data and get that data very regularly. So all of the systems that we now use have open APIs. And so the data can come directly to us versus us having to pull the data, or even in other instances, type it off of a PDF again. So we've switched out 12 systems. We've got 2 more systems that we've been working on first half of the year. Those new systems should both be live by July 1. And so that'll be 14 systems over the years. Now then what we have is a data lakehouse, Microsoft Fabric we use. So, and the frequencies vary and change, but sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, data will get pulled into the systems, and then it generates up into Microsoft's Power BI, which is our business intelligence system. And then from there, it disseminates information out to certain members of our communities at the team level. And so really, Steve, what that does is it gives our teams at the community level very fresh, very relevant information delivered to their inbox in an email. It takes out the need for all the system logins to go in, pull their own reports, figure out what's going on. We're literally delivering this information to our teams, sometimes even on a daily basis. And the reports they're getting, the data is less than 24 hours old. So very fresh, very relevant data that they can use to run the communities with.
There's so many things I love about this. So first, the idea that you automate this process so that the executive director or somebody doesn't have to sit and fill in Excel spreadsheets, which is, I mean, you just think about it, right? And you go, that's insanity. And so that I love that. And and then the idea that you deliver these reports back. How do you decide? One of the things I worry a lot about is report fatigue. And how do you decide what's important, what the frequency is? I mean, because there's a lot, honestly, everybody collects a lot of data that at the end of the day, particularly from an executive director standpoint, doesn't mean very much, right? So yeah. How do you figure that out?
So, I mean, first of all, our executive directors, as far as report fatigue outbound from them, the only report that they complete with their marketing director weekly is the sales and marketing report. And that soon is going to be automated as well. So they are not doing any other reports for us during the week at all. They're able to really, the whole goal was they can work off of their phone with their systems and not be sitting behind their desk chained to their desk. And so they're submitting that to us. We're giving them this information, and it's very relevant. It's very fresh. It's all of the benchmarks that and the milestones that they are working towards and achieving. And so it's bite-sized portions. And so they're able to really take their day and know what their goals are, who they need to focus on. I mean, Tom always tells the story, and I'll tell it today, of we have a health service director who is brushing her teeth in the morning, getting ready, just looking at her phone and her systems that came in, and she sees what happened overnight, what may have happened a few hours ago with her residents, and she knows exactly when she gets in the morning, it's not over rounds in what she observes. She knows exactly who to target, who had a change in condition, who had a missed medication, who had a fall that needs an intervention. And so you can really operationalize these systems to be able to make a difference in the lives of our residents. And so, again, it's the report fatigue, even the way we do our satisfaction surveys, our bite-sized portions. We don't do them once a year where you get hit with 200 of them. We do them continuously, pulse surveys, move in, move out. So you get a few every day or a few every week. So you really can use that information and know what to do with it and make a difference with it and not feel like you're being bombarded. And, you know, coming from me, who spent 15 years as an executive director, I really understand what makes sense and the push and the pull and how you can balance your time between pleasing the people that are above you as well as taking care of the ones that really matter, which are the residents and their families.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you the story you told about having to sit on Friday afternoons and do these reports and not interact with families and residents and team members. It's just rattling through my head again as how horrible and how dumb it is, really. So I absolutely love it. Where does AI? What role does AI play in all of this?
Well, I think for us, AI, look, I mean, we're very, I think, a data culture forward company. I mean, we have meetings at our office with our key leadership team members, and the title of the meeting is Culture of Data. So I think it's really important that we sort of drive this home from the beginning. So to that point, like, we're big users of Copilot. We're a Microsoft shop. If we have memos, or if we have meetings and we need to summarize those meetings, it all goes into Copilot. We then work from that when we do first drafts. I mean, we're big believers in that. That's kind of step one. I think most people can start there. Then there's like, how can you use AI in the operation? And that's one that we're still, admittedly, from a big picture standpoint, we're still in the waiting and observing time sort of phase. Now I say that, but actually, what we're doing is we're building out a massive data lakehouse. So all the information that comes in here is going to be able to be used from AI, because let's be honest, AI is not very good at digging through spreadsheets. You're not going to get the information you want. By putting the data in a data lakehouse, it's very organized, it's very clean. So then if you've got clean data and you've got good data and you've got a lot of data, I think as we get down the road a little further, we're going to be able to get some really amazing results from AI. We're just not doing that quite yet. But let me add just a little bit to this about the amount of data that's out there for senior living operators. Once we get the last two systems in place, again, in about 40 days, we'll have that available. Again, we're not a big company, 6 communities. After we get all those systems in place, Steve, we believe we're going to be collecting about 1 million rows of data a day, every single day.
Wow.
So when you talk about like what's possible, like, no person can come through and dig through and figure all this out. But if you've got it organized in a very good way that can be used, now we're talking about AI coming in, really being able to look at that data, make some sense of it. We always will then go back check it because we know it's not fail proof. But this is the amount of data that, as a senior living sort of community, we are and should be collecting on an every single day basis.
And I think I'll just add, Steve, also from an AI perspective, the one piece that we are doing now that the executive directors and health service directors are really seeing an impact with is keywords from charting in our EHR, so electronic health record. And so when the staff document about a resident, we're able to pull keywords that will help predict if someone is going to have a change in condition, if someone may end up going to the hospital, if someone is looking at end of life, and we can then put interventions into place. And we've seen some really amazing outcomes from this already, and it really helps with our resident at risk process and how we can help close the back door so that residents can stay living with us in their most independent environment as long as possible.
I find myself, my big dream is that we take the data lake that you've got, and we have finally figured out how to make the AI really work for us. I mean, there are lots of things you can go to AI with the data lake and say, well, tell me this thing, right? But my dream, two dreams is the first is that you can go to AI and say, okay, here's our data lake. Tell me what I need to know that I don't even know I need to know. And it'll actually give you real insights that will help you provide better resident care, better resident experience, prevent hospitalizations. And then sort of related to that, I just think the ability to see these real, as you talked about, these really these light signals that are impossible for human eyes to see, that can predict things, to be predictive, to keep people healthier and longer. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah. So that's the absolute key. It's the quality of life as good as it can be for as long as it can be.
We've seen actual length of stay
We
increase
have.
from these systems.
So we, like, just a real quick point here. 2023, we were in the process of sort of putting all this together. 2024, we had a lot of it together. And we looked at length of stay on our stabilized communities, and our length of stay increased from 23 to 24 for between 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
3 to 4 months, no other changes to the operating system, using data, getting better outcomes, using data that's very relevant, very fresh, that could be 20 minutes old. That is where I believe, and we were just at the tip of the iceberg on this, but there's more to go. But it's very encouraging to see, that, and that's as we're still sort of, learning to sort of ride the bike. It's not even fully built out yet.
Well, and we've talked mostly about it in the context of quality of life, right? But we have to at least say that if you can get an extra 3 or 4 months average length of stay, that's like moving in 100 units. That's like moving in an extra 8 or 9 residents a year that you don't have to pay referral fees on. You don't have to have empty units. You don't have to. I mean, it just goes on and on. I mean, you live it. You know better than I do. And so that is really, really remarkable. Where do you think you are going to be as a company in 5 years? Where do you think technology as a company in 5 years is going to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, in 5 years, we're going to have a lot of important things that are going to be happening. CMS is going to want all seniors on a Medicare Advantage program, and that's going to be a huge one. And that's one we really haven't talked a whole lot about, value-based care, all that. We think we're still sort of building out what's going to be needed to prove those outcomes whenever a value-based care sort of platform comes into play. So, look, in 5 years, I think either as an industry, we're going to have embraced technology, or those that don't are going to be left behind. I don't see how we compete, keep up with just the sheer demand that's coming our way. The expectations are going to be there because everything else in our universe is going to be affected by all this. There's no reason why the care of our residents shouldn't be. That should be one of the most important things we're looking at, sort of as an industry. I think in 5 years, I think all senior living companies are going to need to have, a data department. No different than we have HR or we have accounting. Like you're going to need to have someone in your company that is responsible for the data and using it in a responsible way. And then from there, what does it look like? Can we be building our own things? I mean, we hired our first data scientist in February. So now, where we see holes in our own tech stack, we're evaluating, what other products might be out there to be able to supplement that. But if we don't find what we like, we're now to the point where we're just going to build it. And it doesn't take a huge team to be able to do that. So I think as we move forward and we see, the sophistication, not only of our customer, increasing over time, we're going to have to up our game and really be able to provide the level of data they're going to be accustomed to seeing everything else in their lives.
Yeah. So when you look at the technology world, and maybe we should even go bigger than this, but I'll start with technology, and you can tell me if we need to expand it. What tools do we need out there that we don't have right now? What's a piece of technology or a piece of, I don't know, anything that we need out there that that doesn't exist?
I mean, I would say starting smaller but really important for caregivers, which is a huge part of our teams at our communities, is having a mobile device that can be reliable, that is going to work between walls, between floors, between concrete, between wood, that's going to be able to integrate with all of your systems so that you can get notifications, so that you're not logging into different systems, and you can then function. You're not carrying a million things on your waist trying to care for residents. So something that is going to be very workable for the systems that we have that can help the efficiency of our teams. I mean, that would be one that I would have
Yeah, manage our labor force really efficiently. I mean, this is the biggest opportunity we have. It's the biggest cost within a senior living operation. You know, being able to find out where are my high acuity residents? Can I staff? Can we move people around within the building? Can they be in one spot, or can I staff my very best caregivers, on these higher need residents where we know there's a lot of care that's going to be needed, and then you've got other residents that are not as in need of as much care, and so we don't need to allocate. You can't just have, if you've got a 5-floor building, you can't just allocate 1.5 caregivers or whatever your number is to that floor. That doesn't make any sense. You
Yeah.
need to provide the labor where the care is needed and get really smart about that. I think that's got to be one of the places where we really have to be leaning in. And Colorado is a high minimum wage market. In order to, no different than California, in order to achieve margin, you've got to be really smart about how you allocate your labor dollars, or else you're never going to get there. So I think there's huge upside in sort of managing that hourly labor component of the operation to really drive efficiencies, keep costs low on the operation, keep costs low for the residents and the families. Those are the things we really have got to be working on.
I love this so much. I think that the one thing that I'm always cautious about, and I know this is something that's near and dear to your heart, so don't take this as picking on you at all, because I think you're the opposite. I worry so much that as senior living operators figure out ways to use AI and other technology to lift a lot of the mundane burden off caregivers, that rather than letting the caregivers use that time to do human stuff, they're just going to try to make them work harder. And that's my biggest fear. I don't know, your thoughts on that?
I mean, that is very different than our approach. And I look back and I think about a technology conference that we went to many years ago, and what really stuck out to both of us, and we, reset this quote many times over as technology was really unfolding in our industry, is that robots don't give good hugs. And so you can integrate them, maybe they clear tables, and maybe you can do different things with them, and there's great ways to do that in the community. But replacing them with your human associates that have the hearts for what they do, that's not going to help anyone to be successful, and it's not going to be the best outcome for our residents and families.
Yeah,
Perfect.
We don't ever assume we're going to be cutting staff because of this.
Yeah.
I think just being more efficient with the overall operation as we grow. Using AI to be able to help with human resource function, things like that. Just simple questions that can be asked. How do we sort of scale up? But at the hourly level, I don't see us reducing that at all. It's more being just sort of smarter and more efficient with how the overall operation.
I love that so much, and we could keep going forever. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining me. Hang on for just a second after we're off air, and it's been a great conversation.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it.